Basically what I look for is comfort in a car because I'm a big guy, and when I get into my car I like to have enough leg room that I can stretch out and enough headroom so that I can be comfortable when I drive.
I need comfort in a car. I'm 6 foot tall, I need headroom, leg room, and people to ride with me expect to be comfortable.
One of the major complaints of small cars made by Americans, even those who favored them for their mileage and economy, was that they just weren't comfortable, that they didn't have any room in the back for passengers. As someone once said about a small car, you don't get into it, you put it on. Well, once again, Alliance has the answer to what proves to be a key consumer demand. Let's start with interior roominess. As you know, with front-wheel drive, you eliminate the engine hump and the tunnel down the middle of the car. This immediately increases the legroom. But then every other front-wheel drive small car can say the same thing. And as with Alliance, they can boast about good room up front. It's in the rear that they take back all the room they've given you in the front. Not so with Alliance. You might say that for the first time in small car history, first class is in the rear. Take a look at this. Alliance has room in the rear for 3 people. The question is, why can we fit 3 people comfortably in the rear when the competition can't? Let me show you some interesting figures. As you can see, when it comes to vehicle width, at 65 inches, we're only about 1.5 inches wider than the Toyota Corolla and something under 1 inch narrower than either the Ford Escort or Plymouth Horizon. But look at the figures for hip room. Alliance is 8 inches wider inside than Corolla and Escort and 6 inches wider than Horizon. How did Alliance achieve this extra space? The answer? Through better design. Alliance's longer wheelbase of 97.2 inches allows the rear wheels to be placed further back on the car, which means the wheel well doesn't eat into the rear seat. In addition, the unique rear suspension system, which we'll talk about in the next segment, takes up less room. This is a real advantage, and one that you should take time to stress with your prospects. Check how Alliance compares most favorably against competition by referring to the dimension comparisons shown in your handbooks. Another space advantage is achieved with the unique design of the Alliance's pedestal front seats. To start with, you've got more legroom in the rear seat than any of your competitors. That's pretty significant in itself. But look at what else Renault engineers have done. They've designed the rear seat so that there's extra stretch room under the front seat. By the way, this pedestal design is a Renault Alliance exclusive in its class. One more example of how they're thinking years ahead of anybody else. As with other Renault vehicles, the Alliance seats are bioformed, meaning they are built to conform to your body with different densities of support throughout the seat. To increase seating comfort, which in turn helps to decrease driver fatigue, these seats adjust like no other automobile seat you've ever seen before. As you would expect, they go backward and forward like everybody else's. They also will recline, like many of our competitors. But here's where Alliance DL and Limited step out in the lead of true seating comfort. Our seats can rock back and forth on their curved track, allowing the driver or passenger to find the optimum comfort position. Another comfort feature for those in the back are these unique rear seat heating vents. As you can see, the heat vents are placed at the end of the console to force air directly into the rear. In addition, Alliance has flow-through ventilation with built-in door panel vents to assure fresh air inside. This is a good time to point out the functional design of the instrument panel and console. As you can see, the gauges are simple and easy to read. In addition, they also contribute to the distinctive ambience of those things that surround you in a car. The design of the armrest, the choice of vinyls and fabrics, and the surrounding moldings all play a part in an inviting and comfortable interior. Another handy feature is the air vents that can be adjusted to divert air to defog front door windows. You'll also want to show prospects Alliance's trunk, which has a generous 13 cubic feet of luggage space. This is 2 feet more than Corolla and 3 feet more than Chevette. Finally, as you'll see in your handbook, Alliance has a number of options that only a few of our competitors offer. I'm referring to air conditioning, leather upholstery, power steering, power windows and door locks, cruise control, AM/FM stereo with and without cassette player, and a new infrared keyless door locking system. It's not unlike your automatic garage door opener. All you do is push this button, which is on your key fob, and it sends out an infrared light wave to automatically lock or unlock your door. I think you'll agree we have quite an interior story to tell. The extra room in the back, the unique 6-way adjusting front seats with their bioform support for greater comfort. Then, of course, there are the special features like the standard rear seat heating vents and the optional infrawave door locking system. Each item is just another way in which Renault has made Alliance a truly new kind of small car. Let's take a moment here for a brief review.
If the car handles well, it corners well, and is easy to park, it's a big plus.
I like a car that handles well, that drives well, and does what I want it to do.
To put it another way, your prospects want their small cars to ride like the big cars and handle like the best of the sports cars. Well, Alliance truly offers both. A ride that in many ways is superior to big cars and handling that's a match for traditional sports cars. Alliance's unusual handling characteristics begin up in the front end. As I'm sure you know by now, Renault pioneered front-wheel drive and has built more front-wheel drive vehicles than all the Japanese put together. For many of us, front-wheel drive is almost something we've come to take for granted. We assume that most everyone understands its benefits. Unfortunately, that's not the case. To many of your prospects, front-wheel drive is still a new concept. Others may talk of improved traction, but chances are they aren't even aware of what else it offers. For example, few people understand the benefit of having the front wheels pull you through a turn. Watch as the Alliance takes a curve at 40 miles per hour. The driver has no problem staying on his side of the pylons. Okay, same driver, but this time he takes the curve in a rear-wheel drive Chevette. As you can see, the rear wheels fight the turn. Now look at both cars together, and you can see why front-wheel drive is superior. Notice how, at the critical moment in the turn, the rear end of the Chevette starts to break away. The Alliance, on the other hand, comes around in a smooth arc. Insofar as cornering is concerned, a rear-wheel drive isn't in the same league. Another key to Alliance's superior roadability can be found in the suspension system. Up front, you have a McPherson strut suspension with coil springs, plus rack and pinion steering and a stabilizer bar. All three of these elements first saw the light of day on the racetracks. They've been adapted by Renault engineers to give Alliance more precise steering and better stability. Like the 18i and Fuego, the Alliance also features negative scrub radius in the front-end geometry to provide excellent directional stability, especially when coping with potholes or in the case of a tire blowout. To illustrate just how much more precise and stable Alliance is, we're going to put it and a Chevette through a difficult steering maneuver. First, the Alliance at 25 miles per hour. Looks easy enough. Now we'll put the same driver in a Chevette. Let's give him a second chance. Obviously, that third turn is a lot tougher than Alliance makes it look. Now, translate that demo to an emergency situation on the highway, when steering and stability are vital to avoiding an accident, and you begin to appreciate just how good the Alliance is. Let's move to the rear. Here you'll find what can only be described as a breakthrough in design. The rear suspension is fully independent, with trailing arms, stabilizer bar, and unique twin torsion bars. This is a design that is totally new to the industry. It's never been seen before. Why the torsion bars, you might ask? The answer is that the torsion bar is the most efficient type of spring design since, in engineering language, it can store a significantly higher amount of energy than either an equally stressed leaf or coil spring. What all this adds up to is a truly outstanding ride. And if you break that down, you find that with this rear suspension system, you have better stability, effective anti-dive characteristics, reduced body roll, and a smoother ride. Let's look at each of these characteristics separately. We'll start with stability. One of the purposes of the rear suspension system is to hold the rear tires on the road. That's easy in normal driving. But what happens in an emergency or rough road situation? Let's see. The object here is to take this corrugated curve at 45 miles per hour and stay on the right side of the white line. Here's the Alliance. As you can see, it holds the curve all the way around. Now, let's look at another front-wheel drive vehicle, the Mercury Lynx. It slides over the line. What's happening is that the force of the turn plus the inability of the suspension to hold the corrugated curve is causing it to slip to the left. With the Alliance, the moment a wheel kicks up over a bump, its individual torsion bar literally slaps it back on the road again to maintain the stability necessary to hold the curve. The second characteristic of the Alliance suspension is its ability to resist taking a nosedive in hard braking situations. Here's the Alliance at 40 miles per hour. Hardly any nosedive at all. Now, here's a Toyota. Same speed. As you can see, it really takes a nosedive. Now, this tendency for many cars to nosedive isn't always a critical factor at 40 miles per hour. But look what happens when we increase the speed to 50. The Alliance still gives you a sure straight-line stop. But the Toyota begins to spin out. The benefit of anti-dive is this. The less nosedive in a braking situation, the more control and the greater your ability to make a clean, straight-line stop. The third item on our list is reduced body roll. Look at this car as it runs toward the camera. Notice how the body seems to roll from side to side with the turn. Well, a good suspension system should minimize that. Watch as the Alliance runs the same course. You're not seeing anywhere near the same amount of roll. This is due to the geometry of the suspension system. Last item, smoother ride. Look at the action of the Alliance rear axle. Notice how the wheels just step over the bumps. The action of one wheel does not affect the other thanks to independent suspension and long travel geometry. Not so on the Chevette. See for yourself. Both wheels take a real jolt. Up to now, we've talked about economy, quality and durability, comfort, and ride and handling. That leaves us with one more major area of consumer concern to talk about.
I've been reading all the reports, the consumer reports about safety in small Japanese cars, and it worries me because I don't want to give up safety at any cost.
Before I buy a car, I check the insurance reports and consumer reports to find out whether or not the car has all the safety features that are bottom line or are prerequisite to any good car.
Safety is a real concern to a lot of motorists, especially to couples with kids or to buyers who are looking at their first small car. It's no secret that they've heard some pretty negative things about many of the Japanese cars and other small cars insofar as their ability or rather inability to protect passengers in the event of a collision. Well, when it comes to Renault, you can assure your prospects that they're buying from a manufacturer with a passion for safety. As I discussed in other Renault programs, Renault engineers place a high priority on the design of the rigid passenger cell. As you may know, people are hurt when the passenger compartment crushes inward, or when the engine or front wheels come crashing into the front seat. Renault's solution is to help guard the compartment with double beams on the sides, both front and rear, and to provide extra beams along the base of the tire well. In addition to this rigid passenger cell, Alliance's front and rear body structures are designed to deform on impact, and this deformation is programmed to bend and collapse to help absorb the energy of an impact. Another safety measure is that they've mounted the fuel tank over the rear axle and in front of the spare tire to help minimize damage in the event of an accident. As you can see, Renault and American Motors have a real concern for safety, which is engineered and built into every Alliance, 18i, Lecar, and Fuego. All right, let's stop here for a moment to review the handling and safety stories. Turn back to page 2 in your guidebooks, the one titled Purchase Motivations. As you can see, we've covered the major demands of both your domestic and import prospects. I don't think there's any question but that Alliance does an incredible job of satisfying both halves of your market. Now, before we wrap up, there's one other item which is fundamental to any car's success. We've touched on it briefly, but now I want to get into more detail. I'm talking about styling. How does Alliance measure up here? Well, if you were to ask me, I'd say it measures up very well indeed. It has that distinctive European road car look which separates it from the mundane hatchback competition. It has truly tasteful styling, coupled with a level of trim and ornamentation that gives it an upscale and very attractive appearance. Now, that's what I think. And obviously, my opinion doesn't really matter a whole lot. In fact, it doesn't really matter at all, unless you're the guy or lady I happen to talk with when I come in to buy one of these. No, the only opinion that matters is that of the mass of potential prospects. What do they think? How are they going to like Alliance? Well, we predict they're going to like it a lot, and here's why. As you know, when we develop new car lines, we preview each vehicle in several stages to the general public in what we call car clinics. Here with me today is a man who has supervised many of these clinics. David Garfield has spent a lot of time in consumer research and has seen an awful lot of these clinics. David, give us a little background on the clinics and tell us what you discovered.
Basically, the clinic is a large car exhibition. Respondents, people who own or are considering the kinds of vehicles that we display, are invited to a central location, and we give them questionnaires and ask them to go through and rate the vehicle. Now, over the last 2 years, we have exposed the Alliance to almost 3,000 consumers. And those consumers don't know who the sponsor of this research is. They go out and they are looking at a bunch of cars with a rather critical point of view. Every exploration that we have had has given us more and more good feelings about the Alliance and its place in the market.
What do people in the clinics say they like best?
Basically, people like the styling, the way it looked. When you compare the Alliance to some of the subcompact competition, people often use words like classy and elegant. They believe that the styling gives the Alliance a value that's over and above the appropriate competition, be it the Horizon or the Escort or the Honda or the Mazda. In almost every case, people look at the Alliance and feel that it's more elegant than the vehicles that it competes against.
Bottom line, what do you take away from all these clinics?
We believe that the Alliance is perceived as being as good or better than the best of the competition.
Thanks, David. Okay, you heard what the man said. The Alliance appearance creates a very positive first impression. Now, take that first impression and build on it with what you've learned in this program, and you should sell more cars than you've sold in a long, long time. All right, to wrap up, I'm going to give you one last exercise. As you know, when it comes to selling Renault, the demonstration drive is probably the most important and impressive part of the sale. We're going to give you a list of items that you might elect to cover during the demo drive. Select the items one at a time and follow directions. When you've completed this exercise, you should be ready to start selling your 1983 Renault Alliance. Good luck.